This album, as you know, was thrown together from offcuts from previous recording sessions, which is why so many musicians actually play on this album. You got Billy Preston, of course, who contributed to the Black and Blue sessions, who's on this album, as well as Mick Taylor, of course, because some of these outtakes date back to the Goat's Head Soup sessions. So I think Mick Taylor successfully sued them for some royalties from this album, because as he actually plays on it. So you do get quite a plethora of musicians who are on here by virtue of the fact that they were involved with the original sessions dating back to 1973. So this album is kind of thrown together. I think they really missed a trick when they didn't call it Cobbled Stones. So this is the band's 18th studio album, and I think it has no right to be as good as it is. I think it... I listened to it yesterday. It sounds fantastic, by the way. I mean, I do think it's overpriced personally for what it is, but I must admit the remix and mastering of this album, it just sounds absolutely wonderful. Of course, when it came out, Robert Palmer of the New York Times said that Tatoo You is something special. None of the tracks are Chuck Berry retreads, none of them are disco, and none of them are reggae. They're all rock and roll with more than a hint of soul and blues influence, which were important to the band's early work. But there was a good reason as to why this album is cobbled together the way it is. First of all, the band's considerable touring commitments at the time, but also the fact that Jagger and Richards were not on good terms, so perhaps getting them together in a studio to work constructively was going to be a bit tricky. There was always that tension between Richards and Jagger, Richards wanting to stay faithful to the roots and sound of the band, and Jagger wanting to be relevant and modern and moving on and progressing. Waiting on a Friend is the number that dates back to 1973 to the Goat's Head Soup sessions. The songs that are taken straight from the Black and Blue sessions are A Slave, Worried About You, and they obviously feature sort of Billy Preston as well, who was involved with those sessions. The Start Me Up, of course, was under the working title of Never Stop. It was a reggae influenced number. Interesting to have that on here, no doubt, but it's not something I would listen to a lot, just to hear it once out of curiosity. Other tracks like No Use in Crying, Neighbours, Heaven, Little TNA came from the Emotional Rescue sessions. A lot of these albums from the 80s I've since reassessed and discovered that I loved them a lot more than I originally thought I did. I'm a big fan of the Undercover album. It's one that's much maligned by Stones fans, but I really like that album. And Emotional Rescue as well is another one I really enjoy. I could be wrong, but I think Emotional Rescue has that wonderful single on it, She's So Cold. And the title track on Emotional Rescue, of course, with Jagger's ballooning falsetto, which doesn't get irksome at all, does it? There were quite a few interesting videos which are not included on this. Actually, it would have been nice to have that. I'm not sure if they're in the deluxe edition. Of course, we get Start Me Up, which is a great video. Very basic, just band performing, but they perform, it just bristles with energy. I think you get the song Neighbours, which uses a Hitchcock pastiche for its setup for the video, obviously parodying or paying homage to, I should say, Hitchcock's famous Rear Window. Several of these videos were directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg. Interestingly, the house on the video Waiting for a Friend, the actual house that they film in front of, was the same house that was photographed for the Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti album. As far as the extra tracks, you get 3 cover versions. There's Shame, Shame, Shame by Jimmy Reed, and of course the wonderful Drift Away, which everybody knows. That was obviously written by Dobie Gray, if I'm not mistaken, but Dobie Gray's version is much, much better than this one. And of course Trouble A-Coming, which was originally recorded by the Shy Lights, if I'm not mistaken, way back in the 72, I think it was 1972 they released that one. The other tracks on this album, of course, are Living in the Heart of Love, which I think is the highlight in terms of the extra material. Fiji Jim does feel like a bit of a throwaway, personally. Then this album is what it is, really. It is a bringing together of bits they could use, a bit of a scrapbook. Troubles Are Coming, lovely guitar tone to this one as well. Shame, 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 Drift Away, as I've already mentioned. You get It's a Lie, which I think the chorus at least reminds me of the Stones' Dead Flowers, that number from the Sticky Fingers album. And this is one of those almost reconfigured tracks. They had to go back in the studio and finish this off. And you can tell because Jagger's voice on this, his voice has gotten slightly thinner with age. Still discernibly him, of course, but it has slightly, I think, thinned with age personally. And also you get a lyric in this track, if I haven't heard it incorrectly, which I may well do because I'm as deaf as a post these days. There's a line, put it on eBay. So definitely not a track from 1982 anyway. The Ball is a great one. Fast Talking Slow Walk is a nice piano ballad. And of course Start Me Up, an early version of Start Me Up, which is a curiosity, as I've said, and I'm glad it's on here. All this stuff was being bootlegged to death many years ago. You used to get it all at record fairs. Anyway, it folds out like this, really, if you're interested in buying this. I recommend buying it if you're a Stones fan, because I haven't got a lot of their albums. I'm waiting for them all to be remastered and reissued. There is a deluxe box set of this, of course, which includes a live set from about 1981. I think it's recorded in London. I could be mistaken. They were recording a lot of stuff from this tour because they were harvesting footage for a live VHS video, Let's Spend the Night Together, I think it was called in the UK. And the live album Still Life that came out. I'm not a huge fan of the band at this time live anyway. The set list tends to reflect the newer material, which I don't mind. I think that's great. But for me, I feel that their live performances were incredibly sloppy. I think they tightened up as they moved to the later 80s and 90s, probably kicked some nasty habits perhaps. Anyway, that's my assessment of this Stones 40th anniversary edition of Tatoo You. I'd love to know whether you're going to be buying it or not. So that's the Stones 40th anniversary of their Tatoo You album. Will you be buying it? I'd love to know what your thoughts are. I will be getting these as they come out, as I've said, because I don't have these. I'm certainly looking forward to Undercover. I hope Undercover gets a nice deluxe outing, which I'm sure it will do. And there's some really interesting promo videos from about that time as well. Anyway, thank you so much. That's my second Patreon podcast for January. Thank you so much for being patrons. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. I wish you well, wish you a happy new year, and hope that you all stay warm and safe, and more importantly, you keep listening.